Here's everything that you need to know about the Guardians of the Galaxy before watching Volume 3.
The first movie opens up with Peter Quill and his mom, who's dying from cancer. He immediately runs outside and is picked up by a spaceship. Fast forward, we see Peter stealing an orb. Yondu, who had picked up Peter years earlier, wants the orb as well. And then we learn that Ronan the Accuser is also after the orb. After a conversation with the daughters of Thanos, Gamora and Nebula, Gamora is sent to retrieve it. We then meet Rocket and Groot, who decide to go after a bounty on Quill that Yondu had placed. A fight ensues between Quill, Rocket, Groot, and Gamora. Then they're all captured by Nova Corps. They are sent to Kiln, a high-security prison, where we meet Drax, who has beef with Gamora because of his family who had been killed by Ronan. They all come to a truce and stage a prison break. They bring the orb to the Collector at a planet called Nowhere, which is the severed head of a Celestial. The Collector has many treasures and creatures. This includes Cosmo the Space Dog. The Collector explains the power of the Infinity Stones before revealing inside the orb is one of them. His assistant tries to grab it and there's a large explosion. Ronan then shows up with his men, and Yondu shows up with his men as well. After a battle with Ronan, Nebula winds up getting the orb, and Quill and Gamora are captured by Yondu. Ronan attaches the stone to his hammer and vows he'll kill Thanos. They strike a deal with Yondu, and they make a plan to take down Ronan. Part of that plan is deciding to fight alongside of the Nova Corps. Gamora fights Nebula during this battle. And after a long fight between all of them, Ronan's ship is brought down. Groot sacrifices himself to save his friends while using the phrase, "We are Groot." But Ronan still isn't defeated. Quill battles him to a dance-off battle, which is actually a distraction. They get the stone, band together, and they use it to kill Ronan. Then they leave the stone with the Nova Corps. While flying away, Yondu says it's probably good that they didn't deliver Quill to his dad, because that's what they'd been hired to do. Yondu realizes Peter tricked him, and then we see Peter reading a note from his mom, who we then learn is the one that gave him the name Star-Lord. In the after credit, we see a baby Groot born from a tiny twig left from Groot. And in the final post-credit, we see Cosmo the dog licking the Collector, and we see Howard the Duck amongst the wreckage. In the second movie, we open up in 1980 with Kurt Russell's character and Peter's mom. He shows her a plant in the woods, and she says, "I can't believe I fell in love with a spaceman." 34 years later, we see the Guardians fighting an interdimensional beast. After a fun, music-filled fight/dance scene opening credit, they grab the Anulex batteries and bring them to Sovereign to get the Nebula back in return. What the High Priestess Aisha didn't immediately realize is that Rocket had swiped some of the batteries. So a Sovereign fleet catches up with them as they're traveling, and they attack because of Rocket's theft. After going through a quantum asteroid field, they get away, but not without a little bit of help from a mysterious helper. They crash on a planet and they meet the man who helped them, who reveals himself as Ego, Peter's father, and he also has Mantis with him. We then cut to Yondu, who's partying with his crew, and Howard the Duck. He sees Sylvester Stallone's character, Stakar. Stakar tells him that Yondu isn't one of the Ravagers, because they don't deal in kids. And he tells Yondu the horns will never play for him when he dies. The High Priestess arrives and offers Yondu a job to find the Guardians for her. Meanwhile, Ego explains that he had hired Yondu to pick up Peter. Gamora convinces Star-Lord that he should go back with Ego to his planet. So Quill, Gamora, and Drax all go with Ego and Mantis, while Rocket and Groot stay to fix the ship with the Nebula prisoner. Yondu's men attack Rocket and crew. After some clever tricks by Rocket, they are eventually captured. Yondu's men turn on him, and Nebula escapes and helps them as well. Meanwhile, Peter and crew arrive on Ego's planet. Ego explains that he is a Celestial, and the planet is actually him. He said that over millions of years, he learned to control the particles around him, and he created the planet. But that wasn't enough for him. He wanted meaning, so he created a humanoid body and set out into the universe. It's there he met Peter's mother and fell in love. Meanwhile, back on Yondu's ship, Nebula strikes a deal with Taserface and Kraglin to get a ship to go kill Gamora. Ego is showing Quill he too has a connection to the planet and the powers. Mantis hints that she wants to tell Drax something, but she decides to wait. In a cell on Yondu's ship, Yondu tells Rocket that they can escape, but they need Groot's help to do so. With a little help from Kraglin, Groot gets a new headpiece for Yondu to help him escape. They not only kill all the men on the ship, but they also blow the ship up. Back on Ego, Gamora and Peter have a moment, and then they have a fight. After walking away, Gamora is attacked by Nebula. They wind up in a cave, and after the fight, they discover dead bodies in the cave. Peter and Ego talk. Mantis warns Drax that they are all in danger. Ego shows Peter that he wants to recreate the universe, and that's when Peter realizes that his father caused his mother's death. The bodies are his other children. Peter turns on Ego. Groot, Rocket, Yondu, and Kraglin all join the fight. The Guardians make a plan to kill Ego. Just then, Sovereign ships arrive, so a battle between the Guardians, the Sovereign, and Ego ensues. The Sovereign are defeated while Groot takes a bomb to the center of the core to defeat Ego. Star-Lord and Ego fight, and ultimately, Peter is the victor. After defeating Ego, they must escape the planet, and Yondu gives his life for Peter's. He utters the line, "He may have been your father, but he ain't your daddy." Nebula and Gamora also make up as sisters. They have a funeral for Yondu, and during the funeral, the Ravagers do show up for a horn salute. Kraglin gets Yondu's whistle. After the credits, we see Stallone with his OG Guardians crew. And then finally, we see the High Priestess showing off her new creation. More powerful and beautiful than anything she's ever created, and she calls it Adam. We next see the Guardians at Avengers Infinity War as they save Thor after being attacked by Thanos. Groot has grown again, and he's now a teenager. Gamora explains what Thanos wants, to destroy half the life on Earth and the universe with a snap of his fingers after getting all 6 Infinity Stones. Thanos even has the stone that was left with the Nova Corps in the first movie after destroying Xandar. Thor tells the Guardians that Thanos is on his way to nowhere, where the Collector is keeping one of the stones. Thor takes a ship to go get a new hammer made, and Rocket and Groot go with him. Next, we see a flashback of Gamora as a child. Thanos attacked her planet, killed half the population, and took her and adopted her to be a fighter for him. Back in present day, Gamora tells Star-Lord if things go wrong and Thanos gets her, that she wants him to kill her. Because she knows how Thanos can get the Soul Stone, so she makes Peter swear. Here we get the first kiss between Gamora and Star-Lord. They arrive at nowhere and go in to see the Collector, and they see Thanos already talking to him. Drax decides he's going to go ahead and attack, and Mantis puts him to sleep. Gamora attacks and even stabs Thanos, but then it's revealed that it was an illusion with the Reality Stone. A trick and a trap. Thanos had already destroyed the place and got the stone. Peter is unable to kill Gamora, and Thanos takes her. On Thanos' ship, Gamora talks to Thanos about hating her life growing up. Thanos shows Gamora that he has Nebula captured and is torturing her. He plays a clip from Nebula's memories, showing that Gamora does know where the Soul Stone is. To stop Thanos from torturing Nebula, Gamora gives away the location. Rocket, Groot, and Thor arrive to get Thor a new hammer made, and after some work, they do get it done. The handle is even made of a little bit of Groot, and they call it Stormbreaker. Meanwhile, Nebula escapes and sends out a distress call. Star-Lord, Drax, and Mantis arrive on Titan and have a run-in with Spider-Man, Iron Man, and Doctor Strange. After some fighting, they realize they're actually on the same team, so they make a plan. On Vormir, Thanos and Gamora look for the stone. They come across the Red Skull, and he tells that it extracts a terrible price. Thanos makes a sacrifice and pushes Gamora off the cliff in order to get the Soul Stone. Thor, Rocket, and Groot arrive in Wakanda to help defend Vision, who has the Mind Stone. Thanos arrives back on Titan to fight the Guardians and the Avengers. They fight and almost win, but Star-Lord gets emotional after hearing about Gamora. Therefore, Doctor Strange loses the Time Stone to Thanos. Thanos goes to Wakanda, and they can't stop him either. He snaps his fingers with all 6 Infinity Stones, and all the Guardians other than Rocket and Nebula get dusted. We next see Nebula in Avengers Endgame, where we find her with Tony Stark trapped on a ship. They are rescued by Captain Marvel and brought back to Earth. Nebula and Rocket go with the Avengers to find Thanos, but then they learn that it's too late and the stones have already been destroyed. They all make a plan to go back in time to get the stones and reverse what Thanos had done. Rocket goes with Thor, Nebula goes with War Machine. We see a different version of Nebula and Gamora, a past version. This Nebula sees our Nebula and learns of their plan. Meanwhile, Thor and Rocket succeed in getting the Reality Stone, as well as getting Mjolnir to help Thor. Nebula and War Machine retrieve the orb with the Power Stone from the first movie. Nebula, however, is unable to return like Rhodey does. Nebula is captured and swapped with the other Nebula. Everyone returns with the stones, and they're able to reverse the damage that had been done, and bring everybody back. However, the imposter Nebula sends a signal to bring her Thanos to this timeline, and he and his army come. A large fight happens. The new Gamora teams up with our Nebula and fights on our side, and our Nebula kills the other. Star-Lord is happy to see Gamora, but realizes fast that she isn't the one he knew. Thanos is defeated, and Thor leaves with the Guardians. We next see the Guardians in Thor: Love and Thunder. In this, Thor helps the Guardians save a planet from turmoil. After a messy victory, Thor and the Guardians part ways. Peter is still grieving his Gamora. The Guardians next return in the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. We open this one in the past with a young Peter and Kraglin celebrating Christmas. But Yondu shuts them down and calls Peter way too mushy. Fast forward to now, Kraglin tells the other Guardians the story. We learn that everyone is on Nowhere, taking the place of the Collector. Cosmo the Space Dog, who used to be a treasure of the Collector's, is now part of the team. Mantis and Drax decide to give Peter a good Christmas since he has been so down. So Drax and Mantis travel to Earth to kidnap Peter's hero, Kevin Bacon. Yes, Kevin Bacon. They find his house, snatch him up, and bring him back to nowhere as a gift. When Peter finds out, he's furious and demands that they take him back. But before going back, Kevin decides to stay and celebrate Christmas with them. Everyone exchanges gifts, and then Mantis gives Peter the best gift by telling him that she is actually his sister. Ego was her dad as well. Peter then explains that Yondu didn't actually ruin Christmas. It was actually Yondu that gifted Peter with his blasters. And we end with a nice flashback moment with Peter and Yondu.
And this was your breakdown of everything that happened with the Guardians of the Galaxy before Volume 3. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This has been your Movie Time Minute.